Vaughn, just wanted to know a little bit how it is, right?
I know it's been like several weeks, so I am so happy to be back. Some crazy things happening in life, but all good things. So yeah, I feel welcome back to the MLS Aces podcast.
Well, I already said it offline, but it's not official until it's recorded. So congratulations on the new home, right? So
yes, thank you.
That is awesome. That is awesome. You are in your new future studio, right?
Yeah. I got my podcast stuff set up. Still not working right, so I've got to figure all that out. But yeah, I've got the setup.
All good. I mean, look, it's gonna look good. I know it's gonna look beautiful. Joined not with us tonight is Jason and Sam, who unfortunately could not make it. Hopefully, they're having. Well, Jason, I know, is having some fun, or he's about to be having some fun. Sam, I think he's working late, working hard. So completely get it. So, boys, if you're listening, watching later on, see you next time. But this is episode 193 of the MLS Aces podcast, like I said, and it is brought to you guys by Added Time Outfitters. Added Time Outfitters is pretty much like the official sponsor of the MLS Aces podcast. Like, I love the site. If you guys go to addedtimeoutfitters.com, that Vaughn so nicely placed on the bottom of the screen, you guys can check out their wide variety of elastic wristbands. I'm wearing my NYCFC one right here. That's their logo. They have wristbands from your favorite clubs from across Europe, the United States, national teams, and more. I think their most recent one that they're still putting in some pre-orders in for is the U.S. men's national team win over Mexico in the CONCACAF Nations League final. So go check out that wristband and put in that pre-order because it's a sick pre-order. Mine is already in. But if you guys are interested, maybe not that wristband, maybe there's countless others on there. If you see from Liverpool to the U.S. women's national team to Boca Juniors to whatever it may be, you guys can use promo code MLSAces, that's MLSACES, for a nice little discount on your order. Get yourself a wristband, someone you love a wristband, a friend, family member, whatever it may be. Again, code MLSAces, MLSACES. And thank you to Added Time Outfitters for sponsoring today's episode and for sponsoring every episode, as always. Vaughn, I just want to give your shout out of the social media. You are at VI Pollman. If you guys are watching the podcast, you can see it right underneath Vaughn's name. If you're listening, then yes, VIPOLLMAN. It's swapped, Vaughn. It's swapped.
I know.
I have my own Twitter account. It's at Tom Sweez, but I very rarely use it. But if you guys want to interact with me, interact with the podcast, interact with the show, and everything like that, at MLS Aces on Twitter, MLS Aces on Instagram, and MLS Aces on anything and everything is pretty much how you're going to find us. YouTube, Twitch, I don't know, anything else, I guess. I don't know what else is out there that I interact with. But if you guys want to support the show, you can do that in quite a few different ways. You can go to MLSAces.com where you can check out the blogs we're putting out. I think they're putting out like 3 or 4 blogs a week. So thank you to Graham and everyone else who's writing blogs for the website. Again, that's MLSAces.com. You can also head on to the website and you can check out our link to our Patreon. Again, patreon.com/MLSAces is where you can go. Small monthly fee. You can help support us, help support the show, podcast, blog, everything like that. And also join the Ace Holes, get part of the group chat that we have and really be able to, again, interact with us more, support us, and we always appreciate that as well. Also, lastly, then we'll get talking about the soccer. The last way that you guys can support us is buying some MLS Aces apparel. We have a shop open right now. Link to the shop will be in the podcast notes, the YouTube notes, and everything else in between. So if you guys are interested in that, it's also on our social media as well. We already have sold over 10 items, so that is fantastic. There's 5 days left to order from the 14th, so you guys have until, I think, the midnight on July 19th to order. Again, all that stuff helps support us. You can get a cool t-shirt like the one I'm wearing right now and countless other sweatshirts, shirts, tank tops, everything in between. I've done a lot of talking. Vaughn, let's talk about some soccer. I want to kind of start off with some of the Charlotte FC news that's been going on. Last week, Jason, Sam, and I talked about the hiring of Miguel Angel Ramirez to become Charlotte FC's first ever manager in their club's history. Obviously, we've had some announcements on some assistant coaches as well since then. So I kind of want to hear your take on Ramirez, on the assistant coaches, and everything going on.
I mean, I think it's really exciting, first and foremost. As a Charlotte FC fan, it's nice that there is some traction going on. It's nice that we have some real ideas of who's going to be running the show and what their style is, right? Like I've already been able to go back and watch some game film. That's been really fun. And start having an understanding of, as players come in, how do they fit into the system? How do they work in the style of play? What's the future for the team, right? It looks like most of these guys are being signed to 3-year deals. So that also means that there is going to be a little bit of a window for these guys to build something, which is really exciting, right? This isn't a situation where it's a 1 or 2 year project. And I think that also the signings indicate that it's going to be, these are the guys that they want to work out and build something. And this isn't going to be a, you experienced it with NYCFC with a coaching change after year 1. Cincinnati had the same thing. We've seen it with Inter Miami. I just want to avoid that. So my initial gut reaction, really positive. Miguel Angel Ramirez, he's a high ceiling, high potential signing. He's not the flashiest name. He's not the biggest name. But I think that also is going to be something where he might catch a few people off guard. I'm really excited about that. And the other 2 hires that I don't think we've talked about yet are today. They announced that Mikel Antia is brought in as an assistant coach. I believe he's going to be the second assistant, with the head assistant being Christian Latanzio, who also is former NYCFC and Nice assistant manager under Patrick Vieira. So all in all, I mean, the pedigree of the coaches looks good on paper. There's definitely an emphasis on coaches that have experience with youth development, which is very positive. These are all guys that are coming from a broad network. What I'm noticing with Charlotte FC is that the reach of different people that are being signed by the organization, it's far reaching, right? We've got South America, we've got Brazil, we've got Ecuador, we've got also going into obviously Serbians and Austrians and Polish and Spanish and
Chinese,
England. It's very worldly. So I think that's a very positive thing, that the scouting network is looking outside of just domestic league. And that's maybe my only concern is we need a little bit more MLS spice for this team. And that will, I think, come in time.
And I agree. I think that will come in time. Maybe a little bit of Latanzio having experience with NYCFC is there, right? Vieira was very successful in his short stint or I guess his 1.5 stint with NYCFC, right? I like the hiring so far. I like what they're trying to do. It's young, it's flashy, it's trying to be sexy, right? I think I've heard someone else call it like 2 weeks ago that it's kind of replicating what DC United did with Lasada. I can even see it's almost kind of like Austin with Josh Wolf, right? It's a young head coach, really with a set style who they're just trying to put that onto a team. Now they can bring in some players that the coach wants, right? And now we can maybe see this roster start to form a little bit. I like it. I'm excited with what Charlotte's doing. I think 2022 is going to be a fun year for an expansion team, right? And then we get into all the fun offseason expansion conversations and expansion drafts and all that stuff. That's the best part of it.
And I like that also all of the signings, everything so far is aligning with what the club has expressed.
Yeah.
Right. Like it looks like they're finding the fit. Sometimes you've got to kind of do a little bit of a reach. You got to sign somebody that it maybe isn't quite in the mold that you were hoping for. Sometimes the words don't jive with the actions. And right now it looks like they are. So that's a really positive start. And that I'm really excited about.
At least there's positive, like you said, positive actions following positive words heading into a team's first season. That's all you can really ask for, right? You'll see what actual play comes on the field after that. But I'm excited. Charlotte is turning into a fun MLS soccer city. The only other thing that I really kind of want to talk about before we get into some of the Gold Cup talks, Gold Cup action, your opinions and everything like that, is some just really quick MLS news. The one thing that I, really want to talk about is Ethan Horvath. And this isn't MLS news, this is more U.S. men's national team news, but Ethan Horvath, goalkeeper hero for the U.S. men's national team, father of Mexico, going off and signing with EFL Championship side Nottingham Forest. He was a free agent coming from Club Brugge most recently. We had a whole episode talking about where we want to see players go, right? U.S. soccer players go. I don't think the championship is where any of us picked Ethan Horvath to go. I don't 100% remember, so I apologize about that. But how do you like the move of Horvath going to Nottingham Forest?
I mean, we said that the big thing was get to somewhere where you're going to play. So what I like about it big time is that he's going to get minutes. I think the expectation is that he's going to be the starter for Nottingham Forest. And if you look, second, the championship is probably the right spot he needs to land to be getting those minutes, right? I think we said it didn't make sense for him to go to EPL. He's not a starter there. And we were thinking maybe, I know I was talking about Netherlands, Belgium, something like that. So yeah, okay, he's staying in Europe. Obviously, I hope that he'd come to MLS. And because we mentioned Charlotte FC, Paul Tenorio did drop that Ethan Horvath was being sought after by Charlotte FC, according to a few sources. So that is a positive thing. But yeah, I think right now the decision was get somewhere where you're going to play. And as long as that happens for Ethan Horvath, win.
Yeah, look, I don't think much bad can come out of this unless he goes into the championship, starts in net, and he's having some god-awful games, right? I think that's obviously the worst situation that could come of it. But he's in a spot right now where he's in competition for a starting goalkeeper job for club and country now, right? He's coming into a new situation, which doesn't always pencil you in as the number one goalkeeper. Now he has to go to Nottingham, prove himself, and become the goalkeeper there. Maybe in the same exact right, he's getting more consistent minutes over Zach Steffen. Maybe his distribution skills develop a little bit more than what we saw from Matt Turner in that first CONCACAF Gold Cup game. So we'll see. I think this is an exciting time to see kind of the goalkeeper competition. And I think we definitely have a front three. It's just kind of where these front three really line up for the next few years. But I'm excited for Ethan. I'm happy for him. I'm happy that, he's moving on, and maybe they have a lot of Pepsi Max in Nottingham Forest. I don't really know, but I hope for him. I hope. Is there any of these other MLS moves that, I have written down that have popped off in the past week that you want to talk about, or you want to go straight to the Gold Cup?
It's up to you. They're minor moves, nothing game changing, nothing that's going to rock the world.
No, exactly. Just, I want to say shout out Derek Cornelius. Big fan of him. Canadian men's national team, going to Greece. Maybe that'll be a positive step to kind of jumpstart his career. Yes, to McFarland's in the comment. Sam Vines to Royal Antwerp. Not official. It's not confirmed. It's not 100%. Yes, it is a maybe. It is a maybe that he could be going to Royal Antwerp. Also, Chris Mueller apparently heavily connected to the Belgium top flight as well. Is Belgium turning into the new hotbed for U.S. soccer? Really weird sentence there, but is it?
I think Austria, right? Like, we're seeing these players that are going to a few teams there. I think that, there's this line where the level of play is there, right? MLS has caught up in a lot of regards, and I think it's being respected in the global transfer market. Clearly, players are being scouted and brought in at a much higher clip and at a much younger age too, right? Like, European teams aren't waiting that long to see what they've got. We're seeing Tanner Tessman, right? Tanner Tessman's going from almost being the kicker for Clemson, and now all of a sudden he's being signed by Venezia. Like, come on. Yes. That was not something we'd be talking about 5 years ago. So MLS is making those steps in a really good way. A guy like Sam Vines can go from USL to MLS to U.S. men's national team to a European move very, very rapidly.
The interesting thing about this, right, is like you mentioned Austria as well. Like Belgium and Austria, their first divisions are leagues that like major European competitions scout from, right? You know, the top teams in those two leagues. Outside of like obviously the major moves of like, you know, we're having players, let's say like a Zach Steffen going to Manchester City or something like that. We're having maybe like these second tier. I don't want to like, you know, call them like a bad player because they're not like a guy like Sam Vines or whatever it may be, but like just not that a top elite talent coming out of MLS, still making the move to Europe where they can maybe prove themselves for a year or two in a good league and then go on somewhere else, right? Like the Mark McKenzies, the Brendan Aaronsons, the Sam Vines, maybe a little bit younger, so maybe they aren't that top tier, but if they played 2 more seasons in MLS, they would be type of deal. I really like it. I think that Sam Vines is going to excel. I think that he's getting a lot of crap online for that first game he had, you know, like that we just played a few days ago against Haiti. Wasn't the best, but it also wasn't awful. And guess what? The dude scored the only goal in the game, so I'll give him that too. But I'm a big Sam Vines fan. Him going to Belgium would be sick. So thank you, McFarland's, for bringing that up because almost forgot to talk about that. Okay, Gold Cup conversation. I guess we'll dive into that because, like you said, a lot of these other moves going on around, you know, MLS, U.S. Soccer, kind of little low-key minor moves. I want to talk about some news going on around the Gold Cup before we get to actual games, and just kind of like the storylines that have happened before end game even kicked off of Alphonso Davies getting hurt, being injured from the Gold Cup. We talked about him obviously heavily in our Gold Cup preview last episode, talking about Canada. He's the biggest name in the tournament, everything like that. He's out. I kind of want to also pair this with Chucky Lozano being out, and, you know, I think our warmest wishes to him and his recovery. And we hope he gets back on the field because head injuries and neck injuries just not great. And I think for the best of CONCACAF, we want to see our stars in it. And he definitely is a star within CONCACAF and everything like that. So our warmest wishes out to Chucky Lozano. But the stars being out of this tournament in Davies, in Chucky Lozano, and obviously like guys like Pulisic, McKennie not being in this tournament, is it kind of hurting your level of funness watching the Gold Cup? Because I'm still enjoying it. I'm loving it.
I mean, I'm enjoying it. It's competing with, you know, the Euros and Copa America. And I think that's the challenge, is that it's this little bit of like hangover period to those massive events, right? So I'm spending my evenings watching El Salvador versus Guatemala, right? Like, and I'm like the one guy that knows, like, Guatemala, like they weren't even supposed to be here 5 days ago.
Exactly.
Right? Like you and I know, our circle knows, but like you can talk to other soccer fans in the area and they're like, what? They don't even know the Gold Cup's going on. Exactly. So yeah, it's free soccer to me. And to me, this is also getting to see some of these teams gear up for World Cup qualifying. That's the most important thing. And yeah, that's the challenge right now, is these injuries, is you really hope that it's not going to affect that. I would rather, like right now, U.S. men's national team, I want them to build momentum, but I would much rather them get bounced and avoid injury than go win the Gold Cup. I mean, I want them to win the Gold Cup. Yes. Don't get me wrong. Yes. But right now, I health first, World Cup qualifying is the most important thing. And so right now, yeah, let's go out. I'm not putting too much weight on the Haiti game, and I'm not going to be putting much weight on these other games. The good thing is getting to see some new faces and some new people in the rotation, and find some people that are having some success, and hopefully fitting Berhalter's system in a good way.
I mean, you just summed up, I think, what the logical viewpoint for a U.S. men's national team fan should be, right? The logical viewpoint should be, we're going to see at the end of this competition who's going to be in this group for World Cup qualifying and for the World Cup, and who's not. We can already probably chalk up a few names who aren't after game 1 against Haiti. But that's all what this competition's about. We don't need to win it for this to be a success for the U.S. men's national team. You know, again, like you said, it would be nice if we could at the same exact time, while we see who, you know, is going to be part of this group in the future, who's not going to be part of this group in the future. But I would, you know, I think in saying that, I would have loved if we could have had a group stage game against Canada that had Jonathan David and Alphonso Davies, to have, this group go up against the best talent that we can go up against right now. The same with, eventually if we play Mexico in this tournament, this group going up against Chucky Lozano, going up against the star for Napoli and seeing what we can do there. But we can only play the competition in front of us, and it sucks, but I guess that is what it is, right?
I do think there are a lot of teams in this Gold Cup. I think that's one of the challenges is you also want in these limited games, you want to be going up against really good talent, and be pushing the talent level in the competition. And right now, I mean, how much of a challenge is Martinique, right? Like,
it's balancing the amount of teams in the competition and trying to grow soccer within CONCACAF, right? Because it's like these lower end teams aren't going to get better if they're not playing meaningful games, right? They're not going to improve on their own end. So for them to improve, they need to play meaningful games, major competitions, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, it's that odd balance. I'm okay with the number of teams here, but I wouldn't want to expand it past this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends also on if teams are rotating, right? Like, I think the good thing with having this many teams is that you have more games, and by having more games, you get more minutes for more players.
Yep, exactly.
Spread it out a little bit, see and see what shakes out, and that's a good thing to discover before World Cup qualifying.
And we'll definitely talk about some potential U.S. men's national team rotations in the game against Martinique in 1 second. The last thing that I definitely want to mention, and Vaughn, you already kind of touched on it a little bit, is the fact that Curacao, one of the, I think, more up-and-coming soccer nations in CONCACAF, got dropped from this tournament due to multiple positive COVID cases. From everything I was reading, it was a mutual agreement between Curacao and from the Federation to have Curacao fall back, have the next highest CONCACAF team in Guatemala who failed to make it, have them replace Curacao and everything like that. Then I think, what was it, a day later, Trinidad and Tobago, before their game against the USA, had, I think, 5 players and a coach test positive for COVID, and they weren't kicked out. Maybe Haiti didn't mutually agree to drop out of the tournament. I don't know if you've heard anything past that, but just a whole wild, interesting CONCACAF situation going on. Sucks not to see Curacao, honestly, because they have a lot of talent.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately Haiti it came down to the games tomorrow. We're not canceling. It's the U.S. men's national team. We're no, go on the field, figure it out. I really think that's what happened. I think we all know that also there's money in this, right? Yes. One of the reasons there's so many players and so many teams right now is there's sponsorships that are tied to this for TV and ad boards and all that stuff. So yeah, you're not going to cancel one of the 3 or 4 U.S. men's national team games here. No, the show must go on.
Yeah, but I guess my only thing is you didn't have to cancel the game. Their teams were around. They just played CONCACAF qualifying a few days before down in Miami. I feel like teams were around, and they were it seemed like it was very easy to drop a team that has, an MLS star in Eloy Room and a former Everton player in Cuco Martina, and very young, names that are impacted around the world in a Curacao national team. But for Haiti, they still have their names, right? They still have an MLS star in Derek Etienne Jr. and Franzi Perot and all of that. But it just seems like both teams were treated not the same, and I just don't know why. I guess that's my biggest question is what's the difference between the two? I don't know.
Could have been time. Yeah, I think really it just comes down to timing.
Probably.
Really.
Probably. All right. That was pretty much just some of the wild news that happened around CONCACAF before games were even started, or only 1 or 2 games were played, whatever it may be. Let's get into the U.S. men's national team. Their 1-0 win over that Haiti national team that was impacted. One of those stars being Franzi Perot, not being in the game for Haiti. But they still had their own stars. Like I said, Derek Etienne Jr., Duckins Nazan. A lot of big-time talent on this Haiti team that, many people, I've heard many podcasts. I listened to quite a few U.S. soccer-based and centered podcasts. Many people saying this is a very bad Haiti team. I don't think I think in the grand scheme of things, yes, they are not a good national team. But I think in CONCACAF terms, this Haitian national team isn't bad. I would say they are an average team especially when you're looking at the likes of Martinique or even a Guatemala or whatever it may be. But that's just my personal take. I think this was a decent challenge for the U.S. men's national team, game one, opening game. And it may not have been the cleanest. It may not have been the prettiest. But at the end of the day, we got the result. And that's all I can ask for in game one. That's my overall take. We'll dive into moments in a little bit. But what was your overall take from the 1-0 win?
A win's a win. And you want to see that also wins in a few different ways, right? Like, I don't think we expected this to be like a 5-0 shellacking, right? Like, you talk about Haiti not being a pushover. Well, you talked about some of the other pundits. What have they talked about? Haiti does some good things really, really well. They were successful on the counter at times.
Yep.
Sam Lyons had to take his heat for getting burned on the counter because at the end of the day, that's one of their strengths. They do it well. Ewell really struggled in his passing, and Haiti was there and capitalized in terms of at least opportunity in trying to take advantage in those transition moments. So my thinking from the game is, okay, like we said, we got to see some new faces. We got to see some new rotations. Ultimately, you want to have a game that you have that pressure on in the 89th minute and you're trying to hold on to a 1-0 lead. Where you have guys that have tired legs and you've got guys with fresh legs. You have guys that are getting comfortable in their shapes and their rotations on the field, their triangles. And when you insert new players, those triangles change, the tempo changes, the rhythm changes, everything. And ultimately the USA, they held their own. They got through the game and got the 1-0 result. Great. Cool. Next.
The starting lineup. Well, try to send your brain back into pre-game when you were getting ready. You're scrolling Twitter, waiting for that lineup, that lineup graphic to drop. I was not thrilled when I saw the formation that everyone's trying to paint their picture of when you see the list of names. When you see Shaq Moore over Reggie Cannon, you later find out Reggie Cannon was injured, right? You see Jackson Ewell back in the lineup, like, there's another one of Greg's boys cracking the lineup. I even know, obviously, the Giassi's artist over Daryl DK pick, right? Everyone's freaking the fuck out about that one. But at the end of the day, starting with the starting 11, was there someone that was there anything that just stuck out to you about the starting 11 before we kind of dive into the game itself?
I mean, I liked how it worked out, but for me, I was really hoping for Busio to get the start, right? Obviously, there's been the rumors of him going overseas to Italy. So I know he's got limited time, most likely, in Kansas City. With the game being in Kansas City, being his first U.S. men's national team game, I would have loved to have seen that. You heard the excitement from the crowd. Yeah. Right. Having that energy through the whole 90 minutes would have been an interesting dynamic. And just like you said, it was very logical with how Ewell's been struggling for Busio to be in there. Busio or Williamson. Either one, I think, could have stepped in from the first kick and been a different sort of look for Berhalter's side. That was the only one that really stood out. I mean, and Shaq Moore, obviously. Yeah. But Shaq Moore, he was fantastic.
So
really, I mean, I would have loved to have seen DK from the kick, but even that, like Jossie, he's in form, he's doing well. We need to make sure that he has his confidence with the men's national team heading into qualifying, because I think he is going to be the number one option. I don't think anybody's questioning that. And if he can have that form with the U.S. men's national team, get used to those relationships on the field, that's a really good thing. So would I like to see DK just to get more minutes and see what he can do, of course. But I understood Jossie was out there.
Apparently, not rumors, reports came out after the game that DK is also nursing a little bit of an injury from the last game that he played for Orlando City. Nothing serious, but maybe that was a potential reason why he didn't start. But let's start with the back line first, and we'll kind of go through some of these players and everything like that. Matt Turner, I already kind of alluded to the maybe poor distribution skills, and I got absolutely roasted on Twitter for 3 days following the U.S. men's national team game of my tweet of Matt Turner. It wasn't a poor game from Matt Turner whatsoever, so I'm going to clarify my statement here. Matt Turner had a good game. It was a shutout. We won. Woohoo. Good job. The thing that I came out with why I made my tweet of, so where are all of the New England Revolution fans fighting for Turner to be number one? They came, and I will give you guys all the credit in the world. You came for me. But the reason why I sent that tweet was the distribution skills not on display from Matt Turner in this one. Obviously, Greg Berhalter, in his style, wants his goalkeepers to be able to distribute. That's something that we've seen from Zach Steffen. We saw from Ethan Horvath. There's a lot of people who are like, why is Greg Berhalter putting Matt Turner in this situation of not, giving him his strong suit? Well, if the head coach plays a style, you want your players coming into that game to be able to replicate that style no matter what player you are. Maybe it's something Matt Turner can work on. I'm not saying I want him out of the situation. I just think he didn't do himself any good with some of the extra touches he had to take and some sloppy situations he put himself in. So good game from Turner, not great, not awful, in my opinion. I don't know if you have any different takes than that, but I just wanted to clarify my statement on Matt Turner that I made on Twitter.
Well, no, I think ultimately what this game meant was that it was stock neutral, right? Like we look at players and we're like, how are they trending? Where are they going on the depth chart? Matt Turner didn't move up the depth chart in this game.
No.
And that's maybe the missed opportunity. No question, unbelievable shot stopper. Within MLS, probably the best. Statistics would say unarguably the best. So great. That's why he's getting U.S. men's national team minutes. But when we get to World Cup qualifying, when we get to the actual World Cup, he's third. He's third, maybe fourth. And that's the reality of it.
As of right now, right? That's the whole thing. It's been one game of this Gold Cup. He's foreseeably our starter for the rest of the games. If we see him not play a game, it's going to be tomorrow night. It's going to be next game. So that's pretty much it, right? I want to see him
for Amelia.
just coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I would love it, right? Cross your fingers. David Ochoa somehow makes his way into the lineup and stops training with Mexico. That's really where I'm at too. But so Matt Turner, I just wanted to bring him up to definitely clarify where I was because I definitely heard a lot of shit. We talked about him a little bit earlier on, but Sam Vines got the goal in this one, maybe defensively, where I know Jason, we've definitely hyped up Sam Vines. And yes, he has the ability to get forward, but he's very good defensive left back in a very weak left back pool. Maybe it wasn't his best game, but I don't think it was this awful game that everyone's touting that he had. Am I wrong in that?
Anytime an outside back gets beat, right? And it doesn't matter who it is. If you get beat on the outside, you get guys running over the top on you. You get guys that are beating you in 1v1 situations.
Yeah.
It's going to be called a bad game, regardless of what else you did. But I think Sam Vines, one of the big reasons he's out there is, to give some solidity in defense. But no, it's his offensive contributions. We've seen it. It's him making that diagonal cross early on in games, basically from midfield into the attack, where you get that curling ball into the forwards. We've seen it 2 or 3 times now with great success. And in here, it's him getting forward and getting an angle on goal. I'm not going to criticize the guy for having a rough game on the defensive side of the ball in a shutout.
No, exactly.
Okay, you got beat a little bit, but it's still a shutout. If he was giving up 2 goals because of it, if he was giving up a penalty in the box, to me, that's more egregious.
Yeah, it's interesting your take on Sam Vines that you like. I feel like you see Sam Vines like his offensive game is the best part of his game. I don't want to misspeak on that.
I think within the player pool, his ability to be involved in the offense is his biggest asset. I think if he didn't have that in his bag, he wouldn't be so high on the depth chart. But because he has that capability, he's there.
I was going to say, I think his defensive ability his defensive ability normally, right? Last game was not a good showcase of it, but his normal defensive ability is the thing that kind of has bumped him up the depth chart over a guy like Anthony Robinson or clearly George Bello, because they're just excelled at only going up the field and being, for the most part, somewhat a defensive liability, where Sam Vines has that defensive part of his game where maybe he could be a left back option to a Serginho Dest right back or whatever it may be. I think he's a very balanced player. I don't think he's overly flashy at either the defensive or the offensive part of the game. I just think he's a future very good left back. And I've, said European quality left back. Maybe we see him at Royal Antwerp. I don't know. Let's jump to the other fullback, Shaq Moore. You said it. No one expected him to be in this game. I think we all expected Reggie Cannon in this game. Shaq Moore coming at it, left field. Where did this dude? Last time we saw him play, we lost to Italy, and he was our starting right back, and that was 20 years ago. Shaq Moore now refinding his game in, I think, the lower divisions of Spain, second division in Spain, I'm pretty sure, and he had a great game, arguably our best player on the field in that game against Haiti, and I want to talk about depth charts. Shaq Moore bumped his ass up the depth chart real quick. It's a very tough position to get yourself into, but I mean, that was great. That was a fantastic showing. Yeah,
I mean, it's somebody that now we have a little bit more confidence in, right? The next time he's in the lineup, we're not going to be questioning it. We'll be like, oh, okay, I'd like to see, can he repeat what he did against Haiti, right? That's going to be the Shaq Moore narrative. Yeah. Can he build upon that? And so great. It's good that we have options, right? We were talking about Sam Vines for literally 4 or 5 World Cup cycles. It was run DMB. If DeMarcus Beasley wasn't out there, it was who's next? Right? That was the feeling.
Yeah.
So okay, great. We can look over at right back, and there's a rotation of 4, 5, 6 guys that we can all look at and be like, oh yeah, I can see them fitting in the lineup. Okay, Tyler Adams is the preferred for either, if he's not going to be at the 6, then he's going to be the right back. And then, okay, well, you got Yedlin and you got Dest and you got options. Yeah. Options is the most important thing, right? And so Shaq Moore, it's really good to see a performance like that because it gives us more options.
So I've gone full nerd. I've gone full U.S. soccer nerd, and I've created my own depth chart, and I shared it with you guys in the MLSAces chat and everything like that. Shaq Moore just made life for Reggie Cannon and Julian Araujo very difficult, I personally think. In a very tough right back depth chart, a very tough right back group for the U.S. men's national team. It's not like one good game can skyrocket you up and down this depth chart, I personally think. Do you think that maybe Shaq Moore now getting involved in the group pushes down Reggie Cannon, who has had some poor games, maybe pushes down Julian Araujo, who has come out that he didn't want to fully commit to the U.S. men's national team within this Gold Cup? Do you think that he could potentially jump up to that third dude behind Dest and Yedlin?
It could. I mean, I think the most important thing when you get into these qualifying events, and the reason it's good to have so much depth and options, is form, right? If Berhalter can look at a period of time and say, wow, I'm going to ride the hot hand, right? This is the guy I would love on paper. We know that Reggie Cannon, Yedlin, those are the guys that are most likely going to be there, right? But if you can go look down the depth chart and say, Julian Araujo has scored 2 goals and had 3 assists in the past month, and he's firing all cylinders, and he's healthy, he's fit, okay, great. You've got another guy to go to, somebody else to turn to. So could Shaq Moore be that number 3? All comes down to form for me. Yeah. If he's consistently getting those looks, he's getting the minutes, and he's performing well in that time, sure, he could skyrocket. I think anybody right now in these games could. So, yeah, I'd love to see that. What's your top 5? I don't remember your top 5 for right back.
Thank you for asking, because Nerdy Tom wanted to share his right back depth chart with the class. Serginho Dest is my number 1 at left back and at right back. So I don't know if that's cheating.
I didn't even know where to say for him. I was referring to him as a right back, but is he left side? I don't know.
He's both for me. So right now he tops both lists. Then I have Yedlin, just due to what we saw him do against Mexico in the final, and then obviously he's been in form for Galatasaray at the end of last year. Reggie Cannon right now I still have penciled at 3. I have Brian Reynolds at 4, just because I think the Roma thing helps. I think if he didn't have the Roma situation, he would have been on this roster over Shaq Moore, who I have at 5, Julian Araujo at 6, Aaron Herrera 7, Kyle Duncan 8, Brandon By 9, and then that's really all I have for right backs on the list.
Yeah.
So that's my personal list. Again, people can disagree. I'm okay with it. It's not a clean-cut list. But let's stop talking about my depth chart, even though we can talk about that. I can do that the entire episode. But the fullbacks, pretty good. And I would say the center backs in this game against Haiti were pretty good in their own. Walker Zimmerman and Miles Robinson, both having very good games, both distributing well. I can, outside of the opening, 10-ish minutes, I think Miles Robinson had a super clean game. I really liked what I saw from him, and I was happy we got a full 90 minutes out of him, healthy, and nothing wrong going with Miles Robinson in a USMNT jersey. I guess really overall about the center back pairing of Zimmerman Robinson, did you like it? Because I think center back is another tough group to break into with a lot of options. So I think both of them kind of played themselves into a good situation.
I mean, what I love about both of those guys is that they have the ability to pass the ball. They both can get involved in attack in some regard. They're both strong with their head, and they both can play a physical game. I think that's one of the things that we struggle often with is the ability to match physicality.
Yep.
And I think having center backs that can set that tone, I think that's really great. Like, that's the reason John Anthony Brooks has been out there so much. Matt Miazga, right? Like, they're just brutes. They're just big bodies back there. We used to have it with Oguchi Onyewu, right? You just want those guys that are like total cinder blocks back there. And I feel that way with Zimmerman. And when Robinson's playing well, I feel that way as well.
Robinson's freakishly athletic, and that's something that I think you saw I personally saw many flashes of in the game against Haiti. I didn't realize how athletic he was, how fast he was. His ability to distribute is fantastic from the back as well. I loved what I saw from Robinson. I think Zimmerman, I don't have that many points to talk about Zimmerman just because I think that's a good thing from a center back. When you don't really notice the center backs on the field and they're just kind of cleaning up and doing what they're supposed to do, I just think that's a great quality, outside of a John Brooks getting into an attack and making some passes up in an attack against the game, like the Honduras game we just recently played. I think that a center back, for the most part, if they're quiet, they're doing pretty good because you're not noticing them giving up a bad pass or whatever it may be. So Walker Zimmerman, Miles Robinson, loved it. I want to see more of them, obviously. Let's jump to the midfield. Jackson Ewell. Let's talk about Jackson, and maybe the last time we've ever seen him in the USMNT kit. I think many fans will want to see that. I don't think that that's a true statement, but how is your opinion of the defensive midfielder making some poor passes and everything else in between?
I mean, you need somebody who's a tempo setter. You need somebody that can be a ball winner. You need somebody that can be that metronome. Ewell doesn't make me get those warm fuzzies. He never has. I've never quite understood all of the hype on him.
I think because
I put him in the same, him and Will Trapp are very similar types of players where they can have their team that they can be a really solid piece for. Yeah. They can be a foundational piece. They can be a piece you can build around. But are they going to be the piece that propels your team to that next level? No. And so what's happening here is when, like I said before, when he's not in form, when things aren't going quite right, when he loses a little bit of that confidence, when more passes are going awry than not, that's when questions start coming up. And right now, Ewell is flirting with the danger of moving down the depth chart, of his stock going the opposite direction that he wants.
He has already in my brain. I'm gonna be real honest with you.
But the only brain that matters is Berhalter.
True. I mean, my brain matters to me a lot. I'm gonna be real honest. But yes, the only brain that matters is Greg Berhalter, his decisions and everything like that. I just personally think you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? You're not going to have another Tyler Adams in this group. That's just not going to exist. If we have another one, that's fantastic. It's just going to be very difficult to find another one. But you need a defensive midfielder who I think their number one thought process when they're sitting just above that back line is disrupting passes, is playing a defensive game. And Jackson Ewell just does not do that. He has very rarely done that for San Jose this year. And the last, 3 or 4 games we've seen him play for the U.S. men's national team, he just hasn't done that. I honestly wouldn't mind seeing him at one of the 8s. Throw him up there above a defensive midfielder. See what we can do if you want to keep Jackson Ewell involved because of whatever he brings, right? I just don't think him at a 6 is good. I think we have plenty of other options on this roster who could be a better 6. We've seen Alan Acosta do it against Mexico. We saw Gianluca Busio just excel at it when he subbed in, and we'll talk about him in a second. Eric Williamson, James Sands. We have other dudes on this roster who naturally play a 6 or can play a 6 who do it much better than Jackson Ewell. And unfortunately, it's looking like you said, the Will Trapp scenario with him of he's going to be out on the U.S. men's national team sooner rather than later.
There's nothing, once again, there's no spice to it. There's no jazz to it.
Yeah.
Right. Like he's becoming too predictable. Right. Like everybody talks about his back passing, his inability to receive the ball on a half turn. Like that's what everybody's talking about right now. And it's true. If you look at the game film, he doesn't do that thing that like catches the defender out. His movements are becoming predictable. And when that happens, when he's not confident and he's predictable, he's not going to be very good. So right now, Ewell, I think, needs to just maybe have a little bit more freedom to express himself, have a little bit more freedom to try something different, to turn and go. Right now, he's not turning and going. And if he's not turning and going, then you've got to be able to do something else really, really well. And he's not doing anything really, really well right now.
And that's why I'm saying maybe try him at, like, if you want to keep him in this group and on the field, I'd give him a shot at an 8, honestly. Like, give him a little bit more freedom to move a little bit more and kind of do his thing. I don't know. Maybe play the Weston McKennie role. I don't know if that's going to be a successful thing, but we'll see. To talk about those 2 8s, Sebastian Lletget, Kellen Acosta, I'm really enjoying Kellen Acosta in a U.S. men's national team uniform these past few games. The versatility, the solidity. Yeah, that's a word. Solidity that he brings to the midfield, whether he's playing the 6, whether he's playing the 8, or, against Mexico, we asked him to play left back, or against Haiti, we're asking him to play right back. He is just versatile, and he's not overly sexy. He's not going to be a Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa out there, but his versatility and just him being able to just be a solid soccer player, I don't know what else Kellen Acosta has to do other than just maintaining these types of performances to be within this World Cup qualifying group. I personally think.
And to me, he's kind of like Christian Roldan to me, but like not as exciting, right? Like it feels like Christian Roldan from like a couple years ago. Like, to me, I watch games and Kellen Acosta just disappears to me. I know he's out there. I know he's getting on the ball every now and then. But to me, like, I'll go whole stretches of the game where I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot he was out there and doing something. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just my, take on him.
Yeah.
He doesn't excite me. Like I look at, if we get into World Cup qualifying and he can be that guy for us there. But if we go up against a Portugal, a Belgium, do I want Kellen Acosta out there? No, I do not feel comfortable with that.
No, and I can agree that he's not the most exciting player on the field. Again, he's not a starter right now. Again, I don't want him over Adams, McKennie, over Musa, whoever else you want to throw in that midfield group, right? But I think that outside of a poor few touches he had in this game, I can remember one distinct touch that I think Busio hit it to him, and bad first touch, he had to get a yellow, right? And like, he had the professional foul. He stopped a buildup of a play. That was a good job. But if the first touch was better, maybe we're off and running to the races. But I think the consistent performances he puts in from many different positions gives him a little bit more of a versatility. Maybe I personally think a little bit of a sexier pick than Roldan a few years ago, but I can understand what you're saying there. I personally think he's kind of outplaying himself and outplaying Sebastian Lletget within the starting spot, especially with the last few games Lletget has had. I don't think Lletget did anything spectacular in this one. I think the last few Nations League games, he didn't do much to really kind of, again, keep himself within this group, because that's what a lot of these guys have to do now, is keep themselves in this group and prove their worth. Where Kellen Acosta's proving his worth, while Lletget's just not really doing much. I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of.
That's why this game was 1-0, right? Like, yes. The creativity in midfield wasn't there. Like, we just don't have that guy that springs an attack very often, or gets the line breaking pass, or just gets a team on their heels, or can take a guy on in midfield and all of a sudden open up a defense. So I think that's my only qualm is, once again, we were talking earlier about depth. Those guys are great for depth. They're solid. They're not going to make a ton of mistakes, but because they're not going to make a lot of mistakes, they're also not taking a lot of risks.
Yes,
that's maybe my feeling on them, is that they're very safe on the field, which there's good and bad of that. But it's like that when we've talked about these players from this game, I feel like Acosta and Lletget, they really are like the 6th, 7th, 8th guys that really like stand out from the game.
And again, that's a good thing and a bad thing in its own right? I understand. I agree with what you're saying. I like that. Before we get to some of those subs that maybe brought some excitement, some positive action, let's finish up with this forward line. Jonathan Lewis, Paul Arriola, and Gyasi Zardes. Paul Arriola, quickly just going to say, we're probably not going to see him any longer within this Gold Cup due to the injury he came off the field with. Unfortunate, because of those front three, he probably had the best showing within his, 15 minutes that he was on the field. He looked good. He looked like Paul Arriola in a Gold Cup. Good. Just very good, or good in its own right. Gyasi Zardes, he did have the assist on the Sam Vines goal. Outside of that, didn't do much for me to just say, like, yep, like, I want to see Gyasi next game. Like, not that Daryl Dike did that when he subbed on either, but at least Daryl Dike made some runs that were dangerous. And then Jonathan Lewis, I think, easily the worst player on the field. That's not a hot take. That's not a brand new take. Many people have said that. Did I miss anything across that front line that you wanted to talk about?
No, I just feel bad for Paul Arriola, right? Like, he was really coming into his own. We saw his move overseas on loan. And before the MLS season started, there was high hopes that he was going to take that next step in his career, and his injury just derailed everything. And I think he's still feeling even this. Like, I don't know that it was the same injury, but it's like lingering effects, right? Yeah. Are you still compensating for something? Are your muscles not 90 minutes ready to go? I just hate it for him, because it feels like he just has setback after setback after setback right now. And he's a guy that I think if he was fit and in form, he would be he to me is our like number one versatile guy that can play really on all three lines. Like, you can put him up front, up top. You can put him in the midfield and be confident there. You can put him at outside back and he's going to give you a quality shift. And I think that if we were going into World Cup qualifying or going into a World Cup, he's the kind of guy that would be like first or second alternate. Like, he would be like one of the first guys that would be that little game changer for you. And so I hope he can get there. But this was rough for him. But yeah, outside of that, Lewis, awful. Don't know why he's there. Everybody else has talked about how he's not even getting minutes with really Colorado. So how is he getting starts with the U.S. men's national team? I think there are better options in the pool, and Lewis is not that. And Gyasi, he's the number one. Just need to see him get some established form with the U.S. men's national team.
Exactly. I think all those fair, honest, good opinions, good takes there. Let's dive into the subs a little bit, because I think the subs is where a lot of the excitement was. A lot more positivity came from the subs, right? We'll start with the hometown boy. I don't know. Is Busio a hometown kid?
Busio, yeah. I mean, either way, like, he's either a North Carolinian or he's or he's sporting Kansas City home pro. So I win either way.
Busio subs in the 62nd minute. Not the first sub in this game, but I think the most exciting sub in that Comes in at the 6, which was a position I was not really thrilled to see him play at the USMNT level, but he did awesome. Outside of a few, I think, just maybe early nerve moments, I think he was making the right passes. I think with traffic around him, he was making the right passes, smart passes, clean passes, and like it was flashy. And then that one shot he had, if that went in, I would have just dropped. I would have had to have apologized to you and every other fan of Busio for the rest of my life if that shot went in.
Twitter would have shut down. Like at least on Twitter would have. Like it would have just gone totally bananas.
Yeah.
Busio, so exciting. I wasn't surprised, and I was happy to see him go in at the 6 because that's where he's been excelling with Sporting Kansas City, right? Like I haven't been on an episode in a while to get to talk about Sporting Kansas City. My boys have stuck their way all the way up the Supporter Shield standings and are on the heels of Seattle. So as much as we talk about Seattle and New England and Columbus and Philadelphia and all these really great teams out there, Sporting is right there, and a big part of that is how much Busio is excelling right now at the 6. His ability to intercept passing, to be smart in his positioning, to win the ball back quickly, to be able to start transition moments, to be able to spread the ball, to be smart on the ball, to not lose it in bad spots. He's going to have a couple passes that go bad, but what did he do? He goes and makes a recovery run and snuffs it out, and the team didn't hurt from it, right? Like he's not afraid to take a shot on the volley from 25 plus yards out. Like, great. He's playing with some confidence. And I think right now, sky's the limit for him, and push that transfer fee up, baby.
And honestly, after a lot of stagnant offensive plays, I was happy to see him just rip a shot like that. Like, not much was going on. You know what? Like, let me see if I can jumpstart something with a little just momentum. If I can hit this close, okay, it was close, whatever. Like, now let's see if we can turn this into something. I like what he did. I guess the only reason why I'm not thrilled with him at a 6 at an international level is I haven't seen that over physicality from him yet. Maybe he doesn't need to be that because he can read the game really well and he's smart and he intercepts passes. That's fine. I'm slowly churning my opinion on Busio. So you guys have won. Vaughn, you've won at the end of the day. Let's talk about Giacchini. Didn't hate him. I think there people were complaining that he wasn't great replacing Paul Arriola. He's a left-footed, forward. He's a left-footed striker naturally. Now he's kind of being forced to play right wing with Arriola out. It was raw. It was something we haven't seen much of, and I didn't hate it, especially he had a few shots on net, especially that one where he cut in, got on his left foot, and he hit the post. I didn't hate what I saw from him playing right wing. I just don't think it was clean because it's not something natural for him. Am I mistaken in any of that?
No, he was fine. He was there. But once again, we're talking about depth chart at this point. If he can give some quality minutes and be that guy off the bench, yeah. But he's maybe 6th, 7th, 8th on the depth chart. I didn't have any expectations for him. Right? If he'd have been in the starting lineup, we would have been having the same conversation as Shaq Moore, being like, why is Berhalter starting Giacchini out there? Like, what's going on? Exactly. So great. I think he's actually from Kansas City too. I think he was originally born there. So great. He got some minutes in front of Kansas City crowd, and nothing too amazing. Would have been nice if he could have got that one inside the post. But all in all, meh.
I get it. And same with Daryl DK. I think he was out there. He had some positive runs, positive movements, but meh. Still want to see him score that first competitive goal for the U.S. men's national team. Maybe we see him start against Martinique and do that. And I'm going to quickly, I guess, wrap up the player conversation with Williamson and Sands and saying I liked what I saw. Didn't get to see much of it. Want to see much more. Is that a fair statement? Okay. That sounds good. Cool. Let's quickly go through, obviously, you know, we're tomorrow night, if you're watching this live, or if you're watching this on what's today's date, on the 14th, if you're watching it then, listening to it then, you know, we do play tomorrow the 15th against Martinique in our second group stage game. Vaughn, what replacements on the starting 11 do you want to see? I can think of 4, I think, off the top of my head that I really want to see within this 11. But who do you want to see start? Who do you want to see maybe kind of come off the bench and get replaced? Anything like that?
I'd love to see the guys that we saw at the end of the game, quite frankly, right? Like get Busio out there, get Williamson out there, get DK out there, get Sands out there. Like let those guys get some minutes and build off some of that momentum that they were getting. And fine, if it's not working out, then you bring in some of those guys that were starting this last game or somebody else further down the depth chart. But we're up against Martinique. Like this is the game that we should be 4 or 5-0. Like if this one's 1-0, there's going to be some serious disappointment. If this game's a 1-1 draw, there's going to be some serious disappointment. This is the one we should knock their boots off.
I hope we do. I hope we get to see a lot of these guys. I personally want to see a 3-5-2. I called for it in the episode before the Gold Cup preview we did. I called for it last episode. I called for it on Twitter, and I'll keep calling for it. I think a 3-5-2 of Robinson, Sands, and Walker Zimmerman. Thank you. Walker Zimmerman on the back line would be amazing. You fill that midfield with Williamson. You fill it with Acosta, Leggett, Busio, and then throw Roldan in there. I think Roldan has a better place on this team than someone like Jonathan Lewis. Up top, Zardes, DK, go for it. Giacchini, DK, go for it. I don't care, we can rotate in those strikers. I just want to see something new. I think we need to have something new, especially with the lack of wingers or competent wingers on this roster right now. So I do want to see some change. I think we will see some change, and I hope whoever does get the opportunity for that change kind of comes through, shines, scores their goals, has their big passes, big defensive moments, whatever it may be. So that's all I really have on U.S. men's national team versus Haiti, U.S. men's national team kind of leading up into Martinique. Is there anything that you want to go and finish up with talking about Gold Cup, USMNT, anything like that?
Just keep getting results. Just go out there. Don't get hurt. Nobody. Just build some momentum. Do some good things. Be watchable and exciting. Play our style and let's get out of here with some points and advance. I think I don't want to do one of these episodes where we're having to debate about the U.S. men's national team and how good or bad they are and whether or not they're going to be able to qualify. No, let's just let Gold Cup be something that doesn't become a narrative.
Exactly. I think that's perfectly fine. Let's have the guys go out there and do what we know you can do because we've seen it. We've seen you do it on many different occasions for clubs and whatever it may be. So I agree with all of that. Shout out Trinidad and Tobago for pulling off a big 0-0 draw against Mexico in their first game. Definitely want to bring that up because now Ethan Horvath and Trinidad and Tobago are the fathers of the Mexican soccer national team. So this has been episode 193 of the MLSAces podcast. You guys can go follow Vaughn at VI Pollman on Twitter, myself at MLSAces on, there you go, MLSAces on Twitter, MLSAces on Instagram, everything like that. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. Vaughn, thank you for podcasting with me and for being back.
No, thank you, Tom. Thank you. No, this has been fun, and I'm glad to be a part of the Aces team. And a spade's a spade. Here I am.
Bye, guys.